If you're a Warriors fan, you're probably tired of empty rumors, broken promises, and this feeling that the dynasty's window is closing with each season. Today, things are different. The movement that leaked behind the scenes is real, it's big, and it could completely change the future of the franchise, for good or for bad. In this video, I will show you step by step why this possible exchange is so shocking, what it really means for Curry, for the cast, and for the fans, and what is the most honest scenario, risk, reward, and the only way for the Warriors to fight as equals again at the top. Before we get into the more serious details of this possible exchange, do the following now. If you are one of those who never miss news about the Warriors, subscribe to the channel, press like, and activate the bell. This is what makes YouTube deliver this type of content to you always first, instead of you finding out about things late through the networks. In less than 2 seconds, you guarantee that you won't miss any behind the scenes, any trade updates, and any honest analysis about the future of the franchise. So click there, because below I'm going to show you exactly what's behind this shocking movement and why it could be the turning point of the Curry era. Does not leave the video. Today I want you to imagine a scene with me. The Golden State Warriors standing right on the edge of a sporting precipice. One step forward could put the franchise back at the top of the NBA, back to dynasty status. One wrong step could turn into the most questioned decision in this board's recent history. And in the midst of all this, there is a detail that hurts just to think about. Some players who helped the team to remain competitive this season may no longer be here when the dust settles. If you follow the team day after day, you know that you can no longer pretend that everything is normal. The season did not live up to the expectations that the fans created back then. We saw glimpses of championship basketball. We saw nights in which Stephen Curry seemed to ignore time and play as if he were still at his absolute peak. We saw games in which the kids showed real talent. But, along with these moments, came drops in concentration, holes in the defense, sequences of errors that cost games, and the uncomfortable realization. Today, to face teams like the Thunder, it is not enough to have potential. It takes consistency, physique, a deep squad, and above all, courage to make tough decisions. This is exactly where the conversation that is circulating behind the scenes in the league comes in. We're not talking about empty social media rumors. We're talking about executives doing the math, serious journalists connecting dots, people inside the NBA wondering how far the Warriors are willing to go to take advantage of the last few years of Curry at an elite level. You know this. When there is a generational player available, even if it's just in theory, any franchise that takes itself seriously stops everything it's doing to at least study the scenario. And that's exactly what makes this story so great. Back in Milwaukee, Giannis Antetokounmpo's name is no longer just synonymous with an untouchable idol. There are conversations, there are questions, there is discomfort with the team's performance. When a player of that size starts looking to the future with more doubt than certainty, the entire league goes into alert mode. General managers start working with hypothetical scenarios, testing exchange packages, asking themselves, what can I offer? Do I have the ammunition for it? Warriors, obviously, fall into this group. Having Steph Curry still playing at a very high level, having an organizational structure used to competing for titles, and a management willing to spend to stay at the top, automatically puts the Golden State in any conversation involving a superstar. And, let's face it, the idea of combining Curry and Giannis is something that messes with the head of anyone who even remotely likes basketball. It's almost impossible not to imagine. Think a little about what that would mean on the court. On the one hand, perhaps the best shooter of all time, with the offensive gravity that pulls the entire defense out of the box. On the other, one of the most physically dominant players the league has ever seen, attacking the basket with power, protecting the rim, running the entire court as if he were a giant point guard. Perimeter and bottle solved at a very high level. Attack and defense impacted at the same time. This type of combination, when it works, decides championships. But none of these scenarios come without a huge price. This is where the conversation stops being fan fantasy and enters the cold terrain of squad management. To bring in a player of Giannis's size, there is no shortcut. You can't put together a cheap package. You can't hide your salary, you can't keep everyone and just add one more star. Someone important leaves. In fact, more than one important person leaves, and that's when the fan begins to feel the real weight of this possibility. The exchange models that started to appear in the media are not kind to the fans' emotions. They involve multiple rotation players, names that are helping the team compete in the West, young pieces that carry the hope of a minimally healthy future after the Curry era, and on top of it all, a heavy amount of first-round draft picks. It's no small feat. It's the type of movement in which the franchise puts the past, present, and future on the table all at once. In this negotiation outline, the starting point is clear. If Giannis comes, Jonathan Kuminga goes. Today, he is the most valuable young man on the squad. Athletic, increasingly confident, capable of marking multiple positions, attacking the rim with strength, and developing his shot. Kuminga represents exactly what every team that is trying to stay competitive and, at the same time, plan for tomorrow values. Giving up on him is not just losing a good player, is to tinker with the backbone of the post-Curry transition plan. Next to it, a name that needs no introduction appears: Draymond Green, the emotional and tactical heart of this golden age of Warriors. The guy who shouts, organizes, guides, provokes, takes the blame, and often does the dirty work that doesn't appear in the statistics, but without which the titles wouldn't have come. Trading Draymond is not simply moving a contract, it's changing the franchise's identity. This is to say, in practice, that the page of the dynasty is really turning, and it still doesn't stop there. To conclude the accounts, a player appears in the pack who arrived fulfilling exactly what was expected of him. Buddy Hield, a three-point shooting specialist, veteran, experienced, bringing spacing, scoring from the perimeter, and a bit of offensive calm when Curry rests or needs to share responsibility. He is not the face of the franchise, he is not the symbol of the culture, but he is the type of piece that over the course of a long season helps to secure results and keep the team competitive. On paper, it's easy to see why Milwaukee would go along with something like this. Kuminga as a young pillar for reconstruction, Draymond bringing competitive culture and game reading, Hield guaranteeing shooting and being able to be repositioned later in secondary exchanges, in addition to a truckload of draft picks in 2026, 2028, 2030, and 2032. It's ammunition to start over, accumulate talent, rotate the squad, and try to accelerate a new cycle. On the Golden State side, however, the analysis is almost an examination of conscience. The real question is not, is Giannis worth it all? The answer to that question is, for most NBA officials, an almost automatic yes. The question is another. Is the franchise ready to pay that price now? Because the impact goes far beyond the exchange itself. You're not just changing 3 players for 1. You are rebuilding the way we play, changing internal hierarchies, changing the climate in the dressing room, and taking a huge financial risk. With Curry and Giannis at the top of the salary list, the margin to complete the squad is minimal. The room for error in cheap veteran signings disappears. The flexibility to correct route during the season decreases. The team starts to live in a permanent mode of either it works now or we don't know when we will have another chance. And that can be exciting, but it can also be scary. On the other hand, when we look at the current reality, it is also difficult to sustain comfortable discourse. Continuing with the squad as it is, betting on internal evolution and specific adjustments, is a strategy that preserves assets, maintains depth, and avoids the risk of a total collapse down the line. Only there's a silent price to it. Maybe you're wasting the last few years of Curry as a single-handed playoff series changer. Maybe he's getting used to the idea of being competitive, but not necessarily the favorite. This is where the story touches the fan most directly. Anyone who saw the rise of the Warriors, who lived through the finals, the titles, the historic seasons, knows that this franchise did not build its reputation by playing it safe. They were bold decisions, aggressive moves, confidence in ideas that, at the time, seemed too risky. And so many times, these bets have paid off. At the same time, there is a human dimension that cannot be ignored. Talking about Draymond as if he were just a number on a salary sheet ignores everything he represents. Talking about Kuminga as active and not as a young man in full growth who could become the new face of the team reduces an entire story to a paragraph. And talking about Buddy Hield only as a salary-fitting piece erases the fact that he delivered what was asked, adapted, did the job with professionalism, and helped the team on the court. In the specific case of Buddy, performance is almost the perfect summary of what the NBA is about at the title level. He didn't make mistakes, he didn't disappoint, he didn't create a problem, he fulfilled his role, killed his shots, brought experience. But when the chance arises to bring in a player of Giannis's level, almost everyone, except Curry, becomes negotiable. It's tough, but that's how big organizations work when they see an opportunity to reposition the team at the top of the league. From a sporting point of view, imagination runs wild. Pick and roll between Curry and Giannis. Defenders not knowing whether to close the box or run to contest the perimeter. Giannis protecting the rim while Steph commands the attack. A duo capable of deciding games both in attack and defense. It's the kind of combination that changes how opponents build their rosters, how coaches prepare their game plans, and how the media covers every regular season game as if it were an early playoff. But none of that erases the risks. A shallower cast, too dependent on two stars. A tactical adaptation that may take longer than expected. A financial pressure that limits options for years. If it works, all the sacrifices will seem obvious. If it doesn't work, the question, was it worth it, will echo for a long time. And that is why this discussion is not simple. It's not one of those shallow make the switch versus don't make the switch debates. It's about franchise philosophy. It's about what the Golden State wants to be in the final stretch of Curry's career. It's about accepting that to try something extraordinary, you may have to break emotional ties, let go of long-term plans, and embrace a period of deep uncertainty. In the midst of this storm of possibilities, there is a point that I want to reinforce for you who are here listening to me. The situation of players like Buddy Hield is not a moral judgment. It is a side effect of competitive ambition. He came to help you win. If, at some point, the board understands that the best way to continue trying to win is to use him as part of a package for a generational player, that does not erase in any way what he did on the court. It just means that, at the title level, sometimes good players have to give way to franchise-changing talent in historic ways. In the end, the big question that remains in the air is very direct, and I want to return this reflection to you. If this proposal were really on the table, Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, Buddy Hield, and 4 first-round picks for Giannis Antetokounmpo, would you accept it? Would you be willing to give up the depth, the continuity, the security of a more predictable future in exchange for the chance to see Curry alongside a physical force like Giannis, fighting for another ring? Because that's what it's all about, to choose between two different ways of honoring the greatness of a historic player. One, preserving everything that was built and trying to extract the most from a core that has already delivered everything it could. Another, risking almost everything to try to write a final chapter as big as the climax. Neither comes without cost. Neither comes with a warranty. Meanwhile, life goes on. Discussions on TV shows, analyses on portals, fan conversations, speculations, projections. Perhaps this exchange will never go beyond the realm of theory. Perhaps another opportunity will arise sooner. Perhaps the Golden State will opt for a more conservative path. But the simple fact that the franchise is present in this conversation already shows how it is still seen. A team with assets, with ambition, and with the willingness to, if necessary, make a move that changes the NBA map. If you want to continue following every step of this possible soap opera, every behind-the-scenes update, every exchange scenario, every impact of all this on the present and future of the Warriors, then it's important that you stay here with me. Take advantage of this moment, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave a like. This is not just an automatic gesture. It is what ensures that this type of analysis reaches you firsthand, that the algorithm understands that you want this content, and that our community of fans continues to grow and debate calmly and in depth. the franchise's most important decisions. Because whatever path Golden State chooses, one thing is certain. As long as Steph Curry is still playing at a star level, every move made or not made will carry the weight of history. And it is exactly this type of moment that we cannot let pass without understanding, discussing, and above all, feeling. And this is where everything gets even more serious. Either the Warriors make the right decision now, or they risk turning the last few years of Curry into a collection of almosts. There is no neutral zone at this time. Either the franchise dares to compete for real titles again, or it accepts, in practice, living only in memory of what once was. This is the kind of crossroads that defines legacies, changes careers, and redesigns the entire future of an organization. If you want to follow every step of this story, every hot rumor, every backstage exchange, every sincere analysis of what could happen to the Golden State Warriors from today onwards, do the following. As soon as this video ends, go straight to the Golden State Warriors News Today playlist, which I left for you in the pinned comment. There you will find all the updates, all the episodes, all the new information gathered in one place, so you will never again be left out of anything that could change the fate of this franchise.